Hey everyone, welcome back to the realm. I'm Gina.
Rich.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Kaz.
I'm Brian.
Kaz almost forgot they were here because they're the unicorn is here. They're never here, but they're here tonight.
No,
We
no,
had an
I,
introduction standoff.
I was just trying to go last because,
Oh, see, that's how we know Kaz has not been on in a long time because it has been well established that Brian always goes last so that he doesn't have to remember when he has to go.
oh, is that what that is? I thought it was like like a weird, like, power play thing where it's like, I gotta be the one holding the door.
None taken,
Yeah.
but no.
No, it is purely just so he doesn't have to think. He does a lot of thinking in all of the things that he says, so it's like we need to keep his brain free for the episode.
Yeah, yeah,
So
content.
we are bringing you a movie review. So we kind of got off. We've had a few episodes that we weren't able to put out this season because family first. We had lots of stuff going on, and one thing about the Realm family is family will always come first, and we will always continue to deliver you things as we can. So if it's ever out of order or we take a little bit of break, just know it's for good reason. We're still here. We're going to bring you good stuff, but we needed to take care of each other during a difficult time right now. So, family first always. Remember that. And so today, Kez the Unicorn, in case you don't know, or maybe this is the first time you're listening to us, which is unfathomable to me,
Right.
but just in case it's your first time listening to us, Kez just kind of pops on every once in a while, and they've been dubbed the Unicorn because of their appearance frequency on the show. So, Kez is actually going to lead the show today. So it is a movie called The Endless, and that's all I will say. I will now turn it over to Kez.
All right. Yeah, so I'm the unicorn. That's how you become the favorite, is that you just pop in every once in a while and you put out some good shit. And then
Yeah.
you leave, and then people just remember, like, oh, I remember that one really good episode.
Yeah.
Leave them wanting more.
Yes.
I'm like that estranged relative that just like shows up from exotic places with like treats and gifts and things.
Oh,
So we're talking about The Endless. This was my choice. I wanted everybody to watch this video because, and I'll give you a quick synopsis of it, but I just wanted to say right off the bat that when Gina and I watched it for the first time a few years ago, it was kind of like a little campy, and we were like, what's really going on here? But we had to keep watching because it was a thinker. And then about halfway, three-quarters of the way through, we're like, what in the actual F is happening right now? So I thought it was one of those movies that you have to watch 2, 3, maybe 4 times to really capture all the nuances. And so I was like, hey, we should watch that movie again and get everybody else's take. So I'm just going to give you I'll give you what like the internet says, just their like 2-liner to get you hooked on the movie. And it says, as kids, they escaped a UFO death cult. Now, 2 adult brothers seek answers after an old videotape surfaces and brings them back to where they began. So if UFO death cult doesn't get you hooked up right away, I don't even know if we read that synopsis initially. And so
No.
I don't even think we did. So we're going into this movie blind. And if you have actually seen the movie, going into it blind is like it's really difficult
I
to.
think we just watched previews. Sorry to interrupt. I think we just it came on Netflix, and you know how like a movie when it's new, it shows up and it'll automatically start playing a portion of the movie. And so I think that's what happened. And we were like, oh, this looks good. Put it on our list. And then we just like randomly watched it one night. Now, Kez and I have this like fight at home that I want to read what things are about. And Kez gets pissed because they don't want to know
You'd be
what's
surprised.
Like, they like to be well, I feel like, on a series, that's when you get the most upset. Because like, movies, okay, yeah, you can read what a movie's about, but I always kinda gotta read ahead a little bit in series because my anxiety is just too much when I'm invested in characters or movies, and so I
She'll
need
go she starts to fall in love with the character, and she'll Google, like, if they die at any point.
Oh, no.
And it's just like,
Okay,
why
not
would you
every
do that?
time.
You pretty much, you're like, "Oh, I really like them. I hope they don't die." Google it. "Oh, they die in the 6th episode like this."
That's more like The Walking Dead. That was when we were, like,
Okay,
really deep in The
getting
Walking
off
Dead.
track, Gina Bean.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, I digress.
Okay, so the Endless. Alright, so it's a UFO death cult, and it starts out with these 2 brothers, and they're talking about this cult that they're in, right off the bat. They're going to, like, or deprogramming therapy, and essentially, they're not living a very luxurious life. They're very poor. They're cleaning houses to just try to make ends meet, eating ramen, like poor college kids essentially. And they're just trying to make their way through life. And these 2 brothers, one's younger enough that they don't really remember a lot about the cult other than like the good stuff. They remember family and campfires and good food and just camaraderie. But the older of the brothers kind of like, no, this was a cult. It's a bad place, and I rescued you, and you should be grateful. And little brother is just kind of like, yeah, I know you said it was a cult, but like I didn't really like I miss it, right? So he's comparing those 2 lives because now he struggles to have food, he struggles for money, and is just not really happy with his life, and he doesn't really understand why they left in the first place. Well, a videotape resurfaces, or not resurfaces, it gets sent to them. And it's essentially an old 8 millimeter tape where one of the cult members are talking about the ascension is about to happen. And they don't know how long they're going to be gone for, or when they'll come back, or where they're really going. But it's on its way. And so if we're not here when you come back, um, just know that we will be back eventually. We just don't know when. So it's kind of like an ominous, like, whatever's happening there. And so the younger brother's like, "Hey, this means they're still alive." Kind of like, "I feel like you lied to me." Because the older brother is like, "I got you out of there because they were going to ascend, aka kill themselves, drink the Kool-Aid." Um, and we were not. I don't want to, obviously we don't want to do that. So that's why I took you out of there. He's like, "Well, obviously, they're still alive." And the brother's like, "Okay, well, it's in about 10 years, so it sounds like they're doing it now. So whether it was when I thought they were going to do it or in 10 years now, it's obviously happening." So the younger brother's like, "Please, let's go. I want to just like at least go say goodbye if that's really what's happening." So they go out into the mountains, um, and visit this death cult. And the first thing that they start noticing is that everybody looks exactly the same. They're all like, nobody seemed to have really aged in the 10 years that they have been gone. People who should be in their 40s are looking in their mid 20s, 30s. And so they're kind of like, well, this is kind of goofy. This is kind of weird. Um, and they're actually kind of enjoying themselves to a degree. There's some hints along the way, even on their drive up the mountain, where they're talking about, or where they're seeing like glitches or reflections or just weird anomalies happening on the way to the cult. Essentially, they're there, they're having a good time, and they start to unravel like what's actually happening. And what you're kind of getting is like, okay, there is goofy stuff happening. So you're starting to believe, all right, maybe this cult is like legit. Like whoever their deity is, their alien that they're saying is there for them. Um, is real because they're noticing all this weird anomalies happening. They're like 2 moons and reflections. Um, I don't know how it's like a reflection of the landscape. So it's looking like there's a barrier and something, and it's like reflecting the landscape off of it. Things like that, just like goofy things that are start happening. Um, and jump forward. Now you're starting to run into this crazy. So you're thinking it's just like this alien cult movie, and it turns into like time loops and maybe kind of different dimensional situations. And like, that's when I started for the first time watching this. We were like, what in the actual F is happening right now? Um, so pretty
Yep.
much that's where I kind of want to, start picking up the conversation with you guys. All these time looping, and then obviously the ending, which I think leaves you on a really good cliffhanger. And I've got a lot of opinions on that, especially after reading some Reddit threads. So
Well, I know that I wanted to start way back at the beginning, right before they actually started the flick. They had a couple of like quotes that they displayed. And one of the quotes talked about how people share their feelings with their friends pretty frequently, but for siblings, usually doesn't happen unless they're on their deathbed. And then they immediately went into this movie where there are two brothers. And so, you know, it immediately made me think, okay, this is a movie about two brothers that need to figure out how to get along, how to respect each other, and be able to tell each other that they're important. And so you jump into this movie thinking, okay, it's a cult movie. They're going to save each other. And they already happened once. Now they're going to go back and they'll have to get saved again. And I was like you, I started watching this and I'm like, oh, well, that guy's weird. And oh, yeah, that guy's creepy. He won't quit smiling or whatever it was. But after a little bit, all of a sudden it was like, what just what was that? And all of a sudden it really went off the deep end. And I'm still confused about a lot of what happened in that movie. I said to Rich as soon as we stopped watching the movie, I said, I feel like I need to watch it again. Maybe we're gonna have to watch
Ooh.
it tomorrow. All of a sudden,
Oh,
because I at the
don't
end
do that to
it all came
yourself.
together with that relationship thing that I was thinking, but there was so much in there to unpack. So it definitely is one that I feel like I need to watch more than once.
yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I know when the movie ended, the first time Gina and I had watched it, um, we don't typically sit and discuss a movie after the fact. We'll go, oh, that was good or that was whatever. But this one, we both looked at each other with our jaws down, and we're like, what actually just happened? um, so throughout the entire movie, there's a lot of indications of different things happening. That's like, okay, this UFO entity or the weird stuff that's happening is actually true. Um, and when you start getting into like these time loops situations, so the second time watching it around, I definitely understood a lot more. But essentially, there's little pockets of time loops, essentially, and they're all different in the sense of some are a couple seconds, and some are a couple hours, and some are a couple weeks, and some like the main camp cult itself appears to be about 10 years long. And in order to get stuck in this loop, you so I was a little confused on this because it's what it sounded like initially was if you are there inside the boundaries of the loop when the loop resets, you're stuck. But it could also instead be you have to die in the loop because these brothers are cruising around, they're walking through all these different loops, and these loops are resetting while they're
Right.
with
Mhm.
boundaries,
Yeah, I
and
was
they're
gonna
not
say,
getting
yeah.
stuck.
Yeah.
So I'm
Right.
like, why are they not getting stuck?
I
Well,
think
Right.
I
you're
d
probably
I
right
don't
with you
know,
have to die. That makes the
I
most
think
sense because
yeah.
but
the
here's
guy,
the
Mike, with
thing.
the friend, that's what he has to do. We see that one
W
restarting.
well, yeah, but what wouldn't make sense is then there's a guy who goes to check on a friend of his that's out in these same woods because his friend is like struggling. And so he's kind of doing like an intervention on his friend. And so he goes to check on him, and now they're stuck in this loop. And so they, I don't think they died because they said that they would, you better get out of here because otherwise like we're basically gonna reset this our way instead of going through how they reset it, and they meaning whoever this deity, if it even is a deity or whatever's going on that's resetting these loops. um like basically you don't want to have to go through it their way, you want to do it your way, because the other guy that hung himself, uh, so sorry, trigger warning, but another guy that hung himself had said he wanted a gun, And why does he want to go? Like, is he a ghost, or is he in in a second physical form through this loop? And is he able to kill himself again? Because when he comes through the loop, he goes into the building, and that's when the guy sees him. And he walks up to the building, and he saw the guy walking in there, and he's like, I can hear you in there. I'm lost. And he opens the door, and the guy is hanging there. So, and then his angry spirit or whatever it was no longer there, and then all of a sudden comes up behind him, um like
because he
yeah,
restarted his loop.
yeah, like he
Yeah.
restarted his loop, but how? Like, does he
'Cause he
continually hang himself, or like, I just don't get, because the other guy that was in the tent, I don't know what he was running into that was causing him, and his was like a 5-minute loop. And the guy that
Right.
wanted the
Right.
gun said that everybody's loop is a different length of time. So we know that the one tent area is a 5-minute loop. We know that, I don't know how long this other guy's loop is, and he said you can't go anywhere outside of your particular loop, and that his was smaller. But yet, I think Kez and I discussed this, you see him walking angrily down the road, like, so
Mhm.
was his loop down that far?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that would be something that I didn't understand for that guy specifically. I think his name was oh, I don't remember now, but he when he's there with the main character Justin, he angrily walks to the edge of his boundary and he like disappears. So not only are you stuck in this time loop of however long that length is, but you're also stuck in this area. And if you try to cross the boundary of this loop, it looks like you just reappear on a different side of the boundary. But this guy, like you were talking about, you see him twice in the movie angrily walking down the road, but it also
Right.
doesn't appear like he can really leave his cabin area. So how is he able to do that?
Right, and the original 2 guys that I was talking about, where he, catches the place on fire with him and his friend in it to reset their loop, how did they originally die? So that's why I'm not sure, like, do you have to die within that resurrection time or that ending time of the loop? Or because then how would they have originally died? Because it
Yeah.
seemed like I don't
I
know.
think when they originally died, though, it was setting the fire because he says it when they get the hard drive and they're watching the video. And I think Justin asks what it is, or his buddy that he has handcuffed. They're not doing anything. He's just trying to get them clean, you guys. I like that. Like, that guy was
Yeah.
the best part of the movie for a movie that was pretty turdy for me. I give that guy the standout. He at least brought something and made it not boring as shit. But with those guys, I think when they had the hard drive, he says, I don't know, it's either from our past or from our future. They don't know. So, however you started your loop, I don't even think you know how that started, but every one that we see, people died. Every single one. We got the guy in the tent. We see he
Yep.
died somehow. We
Yep.
don't know how.
Yep.
We got them starting the fire and going inside. We have what's the
Other
other
guy
one?
hanging himself.
Yep, the guy hanging himself.
Yep.
So
What
all
about the
of
poor
those,
guy that had a loop for like 3 seconds?
That's the guy in
yeah,
the tent.
yeah, that's
Oh,
the
is
guy
that
in the tent where
Tent
it
guy,
his
wasn't
was
yeah.
like
just
5 minutes though, wasn't it like 5 seconds? I mean, it
No,
seemed
no,
like
because remember the clock on the outside it was like started like
that's what
at
the clock was showing
12
us.
o'clock or whatever, and it went to like 12:10, and then it would restart. So it was like
He was
right?
in fast forward for some reason.
That guy was it was I think it was a second hand.
Oh, was it? Okay,
I
okay.
think
But
it
the
was a
clock
second
was moving, and
hand.
that was giving you
Okay, so that was
that
just
was giving
that
you
makes sense.
what his time was, because you would see it reset. Like when the house was burning, all of a sudden it was on fire, then then it was brand new again, and then the guy's pulling up. So when the guy in the tent was doing that stuff, that's how you knew what his time was, because that clock was kept resetting, and it was very short, whatever it was. Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing I was thinking about too is that when you're outside of the boundary, you're not supposed to be able to see what's in that loop. Yet the guys sometimes do see or and hear things happening in the loop when they're on the outside of it, but other times they don't. So like the one time they crossed the threshold and suddenly an RV appeared, but you go back to that guy that's in the tent dying every 4 seconds, they're outside of that guy's loop, but they can still see the tent and they can still hear him dying.
Right, right.
So why can he see some and not others?
Well,
Now you're hitting on that now, Kaz, of what one of the other problems of the movie is. They have a lot of half-baked ideas of what they wanna go with in this story, and one of them is the red flower, the weed that they, have that flower and smoke it. Um, uh, lover boy Aaron, his little girlfriend Anna, when the one night at the party that they're at, she says that he could see the boundary then because he got high off of that red flower, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
later on at that trailer, we see that kind of made both of us laugh. I went, "Oh, look at that! They showed us the whole timeline of how the red flower is alive and how it became a joint." It was nice that they showed us the whole thing. It didn't
mhm.
go anywhere like most of the movie, but they had to show us that. So it was just another half-baked idea that they had that was never really fleshed out.
Well, yeah, it was like Jenny said, there was so much to unpack in this movie, and to your point, Brian, there was just so many facets of
Mhm.
it. I mean, we haven't even brought up the fact that there's some weird potential creature entity that's either in the sky or in the woods, because you have, like, pictures falling from the sky when that, like, one of the main characters, he's looking up at the sky and he sees these birds go in a circle, and then it almost looks like this
Mhm.
eye or bubble in the middle of the sky, and then all of
mhm.
a sudden two photos fall down, and one is of a trailer and the other one is of him looking up at the sky. And then they have that weird thing at nighttime where they're pulling on the rope, like trying
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
test their strength
Mhm.
against whatever's out there. And so, and then there's this one person that's there that's part of this cult that's drawing these, painting these artwork, and they're painting the mountains and the trees in the form of monsters. Like it's a large monster. So it's like, okay, are we dealing with m- like interdimensionality? Are we dealing with like paranormal? Are we dealing with ghosts? How is the guy present while he's also hanging in his shed? Like, is it a ghost? Is it a UFO? They're constantly referring to this is how they communicate with us, by finding either videos or pictures or whatever the case may be. So I watched it twice. I watched it today with Kez for the second time.
Mm.
Now, mind you, I'm like down sick with a cold, so I did fall asleep during some of it, because I really wanted to like revisit everything again. But Kez got a better pulse on that, so I'll let you speak to it. But even still, I was like, I cannot figure out this movie. But the thought of it is so um mind numbing. Like, it makes your mind, just your brain hurt when you think about being trapped in a loop. Um, and I think about it from a paranormal perspective, how some people say, if you die under duress, you get stuck in that place. And that's what they say the hauntings are in certain locations, right? Like, we're getting ready to go to Battlefield of Culloden, which they say is very haunted, and it's in Scotland, and it's because tragic things happened there. So, were they trying to touch on that? I don't know. I don't know.
Jenny, I got a question for you. Well, not a question so much, but just something that I noticed, and I don't know if you did. So Justin, our lead in the movie, Justin and Aaron, Justin wrote the movie. His name is Justin in real life.
Yep.
Aaron in
A
the
lot of the
movie, his
people's
name is
middle
Aaron in
names were
real
there,
life.
yeah. I noticed
Right.
that in the credits.
So Justin wrote the movie, directed the movie, and Jenny, after watching this movie, do you think that Justin was a huge Lost fan?
Oh, yeah.
Because
I
all I
do.
kept thinking was
Yeah,
Lost
I
the
do.
whole time.
absolutely.
I
Is
do.
that
Absolutely.
he
Because
took Yep, yep,
his brain power had, and Lost was the same kind of thing. They just kept
So,
making up shit as they went along. They didn't
seemed
even
like it.
know what the next season was going to like they're like, "Oh, there's going to be aliens. No, there's going to be a hatch." And so I mean
yep.
they couldn't make up their mind, which way they were going to go with it, and this one movie seemed to go in that kind of a direction. No matter what you think you're going to watch going into this movie, it's not that.
Right.
You
It's
start watching it and you're like, no, that's not what I was thinking.
well, it's like he wanted to take the concept or the idea of the island from Lost and
Mhm.
kind of put it into this smaller place and tell a story about two brothers. There's a really like there is a good story if you had the beginning of you have these two brothers that went through something traumatic and how do they get on with their life and be able to coexist together and thrive in life instead of what they've been doing. That's a good story. Like that's a good beginning and a good end. This movie isn't it though. Like they didn't do it in the middle part. They had a good idea and it felt like they were doing the Lost thing where we're going to throw these elements into it, but we really want to tell this personal story. They probably would have been better off trying to tell a, a horror movie or a sci-fi movie or whatever they wanted to do, or just tell a story, a dramatic story about two brothers, because this movie gets listed as horror sci-fi. It A had nothing horrific and B nothing sci-fi, and that was kind of the disappointing part. And again, they made a boring ass movie. Should
I
have not
really
been
feel
boring.
like they could have done something different at the point where they realized that there were these loops happening, because the younger brother all of a sudden was like, I think I'll stay. At least I know I'll be around people who are nice to me and they like me and have good food, and I'm just going to do that. And then the older brother's like, no, that doesn't make sense. You don't have control over it. And if they would have taken that and just pushed forward with that whole thought process, I think that they could have done a better job with it. But it was almost as if the younger brother was like, "Oh, you agree with me? Okay, then I changed my mind. I'm not going to stay
Right.
here." It was just like it just didn't align with anything. So, but again, I only saw it once. I want to go back and watch it again because the first weird thing was that angry man walking, and then there was this guy that was smiling, and you're like, "What is going on?" And then when it starts getting into these loops, I got lost. I got lost. I
Pun
said
intended.
lost.
Well, when you say like you make a good point, Jenny, when you say that it was kind of getting to what I was kind of saying about either be because they're neither fish nor fowl in this movie. They needed to do one story well, and if they were telling the brother story, we could have gotten more to that. So at the end, when the younger brother comes around to this, conclusion that what, no, let's go. That's all I ever wanted from you was your approval or to be treated as an equal. If I believed that and I felt that, that would have been a cool moment. But
Yep.
instead, they wanted to throw all the other stuff in. And when you really think about it, it was just kind of hitting me now with what that camp actually is or what that cult actually is, thinking about Lost and how the island, it would bring you there, and there was a reason why it would bring you there, and it was hopefully to make you a better person than you were before you got there. And I go, this camp is essentially that. I don't think the guy who hung himself, the guy who had his friend who is trying to get cleaned up, uh, all of those ancillary people, the one who's the wife of the guy who went missing, Mike, and he burns down the house, her. I think all of that stuff, I think that's all part of whatever the aliens. I don't even know if it's aliens because they didn't show us any aliens or say that. So is it a deity or is this location just like the island? I think all of that was all for them. None of that is real. It was them to learn how to love each other and how to be able to respect each other and fix their lives. Other people could have been there in that cult or show up there and they get a totally different thing to get the answer that they need. But for these two in particular, this is the way that this had to go in order for them to learn what they needed to learn. That like
And
that's
did
the
you did
only
you
thing that makes sense about that that would
did you
make
get
sense.
the sense that, and this goes for everybody, did you guys get the sense near the end of the movie that they were already in a loop? That like thought crossed my mind a
I
couple
wish
of
that's how it
times.
would have ended.
Yeah.
I'm
Like
gonna
I
hand
was
that
like,
to Kev.
okay, here's this little area.
Mhm.
They were here before. Is it a
Yeah,
loop? Are they now going to go from here
yeah.
back?
I was
And all of
waiting
a
for it
sudden
to
now they're going
happen,
back
and
to
Yeah.
it
where they
never
came
did,
from.
yeah.
But it didn't happen.
No, I was waiting. I thought the same thing. I thought, "Oh, I wonder if they're in a loop." And at the very end, all of a sudden, it's gonna show us them back in the apartment or whatever at the very beginning of the movie, like it would all of a sudden start over again,
Right.
and I'd be like, "Oh, shit, that's what's going they're in a loop too," But it never went that way, unless with the cliffhanger going on, that's what they want you to start thinking about, how the way it did end, maybe that's what they want you to do is start, thinking, "Hey, maybe that's what's going on," but,
I
I don't
mean,
know, but I did get that sense, yeah.
I really did dissect the crap out of the movie the second time around because they hit this barrier, right? And there's a lot of nuances that I have to come back to, but essentially they hit this barrier. Suddenly it's daylight and they're popping out somewhere else and they're celebrating. They just got through the barrier, so they're like, "Yay, we did it! We escaped the loop. We're good to go. We can go live our lives." Um, but I actually think that either they are in a larger loop that has not ended yet, or they just began their first loop from
That
that point where they hit the wall. Uh,
sadly, that makes sense.
Hmm.
I don't think they got out of it, and I'm telling you, when I tell you I dissected this movie, I went to the beginning when they were driving into the mountain, and I looked at all the landscape, and I looked at the birds, and I looked at what side of the road the memorial thing was on, and
Yep.
I looked at what side of the road the little, like, totem stick thing was
And the
on.
telephone poles.
Telephone poles, and then I went to the end of the movie, when they first got out of, and it became daylight and like, okay, what side of the road are the telephone poles on and what side of the road is the mountain and all this stuff, and I'm really dissecting it. And what I noticed, which initially I was like, oh my gosh, they're in a loop. They're driving back to the cult right now, right?
Mhm.
Because when they first break the barrier and they're celebrating and you're looking at the landscape as it's going by, you can see that they are indeed, unless it was a overlooking of the directing, but I kind of feel like it was intentional. It looks like they are driving back towards the same way they
They're
just
going
came.
the direction, yeah, because I think everything was on the right side, correct?
Yes.
And
However,
that's which way the car was going when it came flying through. When you first see it, it's going speeding that direction, right?
100%.
Yeah.
But then they flash that scene to the cult, kind of like they're sitting there and they're waiting for the car to drive up the mountain, and then they all kind of like have like a sigh of relief, like, okay, they made it out. They're not driving back up this mountain. But then they go back to the two brothers, and you start analyzing the scene after that, and they're going the opposite direction again. So now they are going away from the mountain, and part of me wants to think, okay, is that just bad filming, bad directing? The other part of me thinks that it was very
Yes.
intentional too, to just kind of be like, almost like it's mirrored, right? Because a lot of what was going on through the movie was mirrored
Lot of
imagery,
reflections,
scenery.
yeah.
Even when they were driving up there, right? They stop at the little memorial on the side of the road. The kid looks to the left and he sees birds circling weirdly, and he looks to the right and he sees birds circling weirdly, and he looks back over to the left and those birds have completely disappeared. So it's like, like this mirrored thing that's kind of like screwing him up. So that's why I wonder if the ending was intentional in that way too. But like showing you, like, yes, they are still under the influence of whatever it is, or they are in a larger loop. And I feel like that would also explain why they are not getting trapped in these smaller loops as they are resetting. Because if it's not that they have to die in the loop, and it's just what the guy originally said was, don't be here when my loop resets because you'll get stuck. So are these guys able to go through these areas because they are in a greater, larger loop? And so they're
Right.
not getting stuck there because they're already stuck on their own.
Right.
Like when we got stuck on the telephone poles and which direction they were going on, because they showed a reflection of the mountain in the mirror as they're driving. Because the whole thing is like, for those that are listening to this podcast, these guys at the end decide they want to try to escape before the thing resets. And the time clock that tells them of when it's going to reset is that there are 3 moons in this area. Like when they go look up in the sky, there's 3 moons. And so they basically said, you need to be out of here before the third moon becomes full. And so 2 of the moons were full and the third one was starting to become more full. So at the last minute, they decide, hey, we're going to get out of here. We don't want to stay here. Let's just get out. And, you know, the one brother says something kind of weird to him, like, let me drive. All I ever wanted to do was like mess up with you, or, have this experience with you or something. Um, but so then when we were just paying attention to all those little details, we're like, okay, either like Kez says, like it was just a movie glitch, like they weren't paying attention to what they were filming or how they were filming it, or and we're putting too much thought into it, or it was intentional. But the other thing we talked about is that memorial that starts off at the beginning of them heading up into the hills as a memorial site that was built for their mother. So apparently, I don't know if their mom was killed in an accident there on the side of the road, and these kids ended up getting picked up by these members in the cult, or maybe the mom was in the cult trying to escape with them, and maybe that's how they originally escaped. But that would make sense because they end up building a memorial for her, and they drew a picture of them with her, and it looks like a little kid had drew it, and it's in this frame. And the guy mentions like, wow, this picture really held up over the years, because 10 years had passed, I guess, at that point. So it's like, okay, so did they ever really make it make it out in the first place? I don't know. I don't
Rich,
know.
what was your favorite part of that movie?
The favorite part, probably
Mhm.
the ending, I guess, because it made you think, you
Yeah.
know, because I mean, it wasn't a clear. I mean, what seemed like a clear ending obviously wasn't a clear ending because we're sitting here talking about it. So, um, I guess that was my favorite part is that kind of made me think a little bit as to what was actually going on. I mean, other than that, through the movie, I don't know. It was an okay movie. I mean, we sat through Joker and we didn't turn it off. So I mean, if we can sit through that, we can sit through anything. So I
This one
mean,
was just really slow. Would you
yeah, I mean,
agree?
it wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't a bad movie. It was just it wasn't for me. Okay,
Yeah.
but it was okay. I mean, I didn't not like it. I didn't hate it or anything like that. I mean, it was okay. It was interesting. It had some plot twists going on there that you had to think about a little bit, but it wasn't to Brian's point, I didn't see any aliens anywhere. They try hard to make you believe that there's an alien in the sky somewhere, or there's a flying saucer, or there's something going on, but you never
Right.
actually see that, And then at the end, it turns into Lost, where there's black things chasing you. I mean, it was weird, but I don't know.
Well, it's pretty wild. I definitely think that it's worth a second watch if you're at all curious about it.
Right.
'Cause the second time watching it, knowing how it goes, um,
And
I,
maybe that's all I have to do too. Maybe I need to watch it again, like you said, and now pay attention to some of those things. And there's probably a lot of things in there that you're gonna catch that second time. I'm sure you did, and you're gonna go, oh, okay, that makes more sense now because they probably drop a lot of hints throughout the whole movie,
yes.
and you really have to pick up on that stuff. And if you're just watching it the first time and you're trying to follow it, you miss a lot of that stuff.
I feel like it really becomes like a choose your own adventure
Mm,
almost. You can then decide what story they're trying to tell almost every time that you're watching it. So, um, I was scouring some Reddit stuff, and someone was like, Anna, who's the woman that looked like kind of had a crush on the one brother, Aaron, right? His brother's like, she might be a pedophile, like because she's had eyes for you since you were a kid. And I'm
right,
wondering if either A, they've been through this loop so many times. So say these guys are in a larger loop and the cult loop is smaller, say. And so and obviously time is different and it could be past, future, it's all happening at the same time. Is kind of what they're getting at, like how convoluted time and space can be. And so the idea was, okay, well maybe they've already like been through this with these guys in some other way, right? The way that their loops, I don't know, clash. And so she already knows like this is somebody that I've, fallen in love with or been with. Or another thing that somebody was alluding to is maybe Anna is actually their mother
Hmm.
because
Oh,
she
that
is exhibiting closeness and care. But so, for example, like the one cult leader, he's like, or the brother's like, aren't you like worried that he's in there with Anna by himself? And he's like, "No, why would I? Like, I'm not threatened by them. She's, you know what I mean? Like, that's her kid, kind of." That was what I was thinking. I was like, "Oh, maybe because he's like, well, it's not like she's gonna sleep with him." And then so later on, they made that innuendo too, where he's like, "Oh, I slept with her," and the brother was like, "Well, good for you."
Yeah, right
Like,
on.
he's like, "I like slept next to her," like, you know what I mean? So then it's like also implying that nothing intimate happened, right? Or not implying, it's directly saying it. And so then it starts making you wonder like what their actual relationship is.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's weird because they hadn't aged, so he was saying she's in her 40s or something like that,
Right.
and they did age, which means maybe you're right, maybe this is the first time their loop happens then when they try to escape and they just don't make it out on time, and so they end up getting thrust into their very first loop when they try to escape out of there because he aged. Obviously, he was a kid when I mean, they were
Right.
kids when they were there in the past, so it's
Were they?
real life
Because
time.
the stupid ass news clips and the newspaper shows them as grown adults, but never mind. I digress. Another one of my
No, I
Oh,
pet
agree.
peeves.
yeah.
When they're talking about it, yeah, they're showing them appearing older. At
Yeah,
least
they weren't kids,
the
right?
older brother is at
Yeah.
least like in his teenage years.
Right.
If so they're supposed to be 20 and Anna's supposed to be 40. Bullshit. That's either horrible casting and a horrible
Or
actor
they
hubris.
died at that age and never aged. They died, like, when they were looking that young and then never aged. They'd, like, just stay in this loop.
That'd be great if the movie told me that, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
It
'cause
makes me
even
have
That's what's
to ask
pissing you
questions
off
about
is
it.
it's not
But
telling you the answers, and you have to choose your own adventure, and it's annoying because none of the adventures really uh, make the most sense.
it
didn't you look it up, like, what the makers of the film, like, what it meant, and they said the answers were actually in the movie, and it's kinda like,
They
"Well, that's fucking rude. Just tell me what you meant by this movie."
Yeah, they had some interview and they were like, "So what is it? Like, did they escape? Are they in a loop? What's happening?" And the guys are like, uh, "We believe that that's not an answer that we wanna come right out and say, but we feel like the answer is within the movie." So, as in if you watch it enough times and you connect all the things, all the conversations that seem maybe pointless, um, the first or second watch and you start listening to what they're actually saying, that maybe you'll start making these connections. They even said like it's the second scene of the movie is when they start showing their first hand. Like they start showing like, okay, yes, this is where they are or what's happening to them. And what I was thinking about that was two things. Either A, what Jenny was talking about um with the quote saying the family or siblings don't say anything until their deathbed, so maybe that's foreboding, like, so when they crashed into that sphere thing,
Oh, yeah.
that maybe like that was foreboding, like, okay, yeah, so that's when they died and now they've began a new loop, or and
And
or
they said meaningful things right before that.
Yeah.
right, and or the other like initial first or second scene was when he got the videotape and they go to the cult and they're like, "We didn't send you the tape. We didn't do this. Like nobody sent you this tape." Right. And so then we find out that this UFO, this entity, whatever, shows them, hey, this is how we communicate with you is through video and through pictures and through all, hard drives and whatever crap. And so it makes you think, okay, the entity or whatever it is sent them this video to lure them back to this area. And if they weren't in a loop, how could that entity have that power to do that to them specifically? Right? My brain hurts.
Yeah, I know. I will say, your choose your own adventure. One of my favorite part of the movie was when the younger brother basically said, "You know what? I'm going to stay. I'd rather have what I know is good and it's acceptable and I'll eat well instead of living life and making my own decisions." And the older brother was more on the fence of, "No, don't you want to be able to be in control of your future and this and that?" And I think a lot of people struggle with that. Just in general, I think people struggle with that. Do they stick with what they know is safe and predictable, or do they choose their own adventure and just go out there and try to figure out what else is out there? Probably not what the writers were getting at, but that was one of my favorite parts of the movie because it's almost like he did have a choice. He could choose that safe place in his own mind instead of going out and doing an adventure.
you guys are
Yeah.
so kind.
What was that,
You guys
what was that,
I
Brian?
said you are so kind, Jenny. You don't have to make excuses for it.
I think Brian wants an opportunity to just like let it rip.
No, he
It's
should, because it was very confusing. I couldn't follow a lot of that.
Hey,
it,
some of these movies we're gonna like, some we're not, and that's what we're here
it
to do. So if you didn't like it, you
For
didn't
the
like it.
record, I
It
liked
is what
it.
it is, and that's fine. Like I said, I mean, it wasn't a bad movie. It just, there's a lot of thinking involved.
I'm being I'm being kind and objective and honest when I say they have the idea of a good story that they want to tell. They just didn't execute it, and they didn't make a very good movie because of it. And the more that I hear about those guys that they're in an interview and somebody asks them about that, and they give the bullshit answers of it's all there if you see it and you want to do that. I'm sorry. Are are they getting their doors beaten down because people want to interview them about this movie and give them a big budget for their next movie? They can't answer the question about this movie if people have a question about it. Like that kind of pisses
Right.
me off because
Yeah.
now they're teetering on art house douchebaggery of what they were trying to do in this movie. Like, first of all, again, it's a horror sci-fi. It's neither. Um, it's not a good time loop movie. If you want a good time loop movie, you have Groundhog Day, Happy Death Day, Edge of Tomorrow, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 4, The Dream Master. It's not a very good, ambiguous twist ending. If you want one of those, you can go watch Inception, Sixth Sense, Breaking Bad, Twilight, Breaking Dawn Part 2,
Twilight.
the
Went
ending
there.
of Dallas and the finale of Newhart. And it's not an alien movie by any stretch of the imagination. There's no aliens, there's no UFO. They want to play that game, and it pisses me off. If you want a good alien movie, watch Independence Day, Predator, Alien, Pixels. Any one of those is better
You
than
want a good
this.
movie? Watch Twilight series.
And it's yeah. See,
I just love
Twilight made the
pissing
list.
Brian off.
I did that for you, Gina. That I put it
Thank
on the
you.
list
Thank
of
you.
more satisfying dream sequence or is this really happening bullshit. I'm giving it to a Twilight movie.
Thank you.
The movie didn't. It had ideas, and for some reason, it didn't want to flesh those out at all. And
Yeah.
then after the fact, to try to be ambiguous about it, like they're trying to be too cute. They're doing the Lost thing. If you want to tell a story about two brothers, tell that story. When you start putting in all this other stuff for buzz or whatever they were trying to do to make that movie, it all sounds great. My final problem with the movie is what I started with. It's boring as shit. That is a cardinal sin for a movie. There's a lot of movies out there that make you think and you have to figure out what they're trying to tell you. But in movies, we usually say show, don't tell. It's a visual medium. But they didn't do that. They make us ask questions that maybe we have the answer to, but they walk that line of it being so ambiguous, it can be whatever you want it to be. And that's dissatisfying.
What do you have to say, Kez?
No, I can see why he would think all those things. I definitely think that the being ambiguous is very frustrating. I feel that same frustration with that too, because I would love answers to things, especially when it drives me crazy not knowing if it's just a plot hole or if
That's
it's
the problem.
intentional, and that's really frustrating because now I'm, looking into this literally frame by frame movie to figure out again if they're just missing pieces and just kind of like leaving things hanging and having plot holes, or if everything is intentional, right? And I think that if it were a book, everything would be intentional, but because it's a movie,
Mhm.
it might not be. And yeah, though it is a choice to not come right out and be like, yes, they're still in a loop, right? Just obviously, um, it's a choice to let people figure it out on their own or decide on their own or whatever they feel like best fits. But in a small way, it's as annoying and frustrating as that is, I kind of like it because it's like, all right, well, again, it's a choose your own adventure, and it's one of those unsatisfying existential things where you're just never gonna, know the answer to that. And if
Like the meaning of life.
well, my biggest takeaway from any movie that has time loops or time travel, right? Because there's so many uh, that stuff just it's so hard to wrap your head around because of all the conflicting things. When they're like, time is not linear. It's everything happens at once, right? The past, present, future is all happening at the same exact time, like time is a concept, all those things, right? That's when my brain starts hurting and I can't do it. And that's pretty much what this movie was also trying to do. But my takeaway from it was, would I want to live, even if I got 10 years to do it, forever for eternity? And my answer would be, hell no. It might be fun for the first couple loops, but I think once you're pushing what he said you don't master anything until you do it for 1,000,000 hours. So when you start pushing a couple 100 years old or a couple hundred, circles, loops, and you literally know like there's no way out, you can't die and not come back. Like that's a horrible thing to think about. If anybody's seen The Good Place, spoiler on that, but near the end, everybody made it to heaven and they're all like, yay, it's a party, it's great. And then after a couple 100 years, they're like, everybody's depressed in heaven. Like, what the heck's going on? And it's because they don't have a way out. How do you enjoy something to its fullest if there's no ending to it? There's no climax, there's no choice to be done with it, and so it loses its flavor, right? It's just as they say, like, how can you appreciate the good things in life if you don't have the bad things in life? So off on a tangent, but essentially, this time loop of living your same life, whether it's a week or 10 years or whatever, forever and ever and ever, just sounds horrific, and it makes you kind of existentially think about your day-to-day mundane life and the loops that you do daily.
That's
Same
true.
same shit every single day, and then you're 10 years older and you wonder what happened, right?
I guess it's true.
Yeah, that would have been a good story for them to tell.
Yeah, right?
I wish that they would have. I wish they would have. I wish they would have cast the movie better instead of casting themselves because that hurts. There's just
I didn't
it's the
realize that was them exactly.
oh, and it's like that's what I'm trying to say, that the story there's bones of a good story there, but as a movie, as a film to watch it, that's where everything breaks down, is that they didn't do a good job making the movie from what like and that starts with the casting and everything. They have 2 people, the guys who burned the house down had some personality and gave me something on screen while they're telling the story. Everybody else, it just that's what made it boring as hell, is that nobody on there had anything going, and that makes, again, for an unenjoyable experience. A good version of a movie where it actually gives you the answer,
Right.
but it makes you think these things. The Prestige is a great example of that, that you tell this story, and it's a pretty rudimentary story at the end, but we actually get an answer at the end to explain the movie, and you had good actors and competent people making it and a good director, and you can tell that story. I feel like these guys needed maybe another draft of their story and, um, a little bit better in the not the production. The production actually looked decent for a low budget
Yeah.
movie. I didn't have problems with that. It was the acting, um, some of the directing, and just they editing. All of those things are what really screwed it up for me
Well, yeah, because you just didn't, like you said, you didn't get any answers. Like, why was somebody's loop like 5 seconds long and so like brutal and drastic and violent and like,
because it was shocking at the moment for us to see that, and
yeah, and
that's
then
the
it's
kind of
like, so
stuff
what
that
was the
drives me
point?
nuts. Yeah, I can hear them click away on the word processor in those moments where, you can hear the writer's room going because you go, "Oh shit, what are they gonna do?" I mean, Gina, you like Twilight. You know exactly what I'm talking about. How many times did they just get in there and you can just hear them plucking away as they're going, trying to make something work? Is Twilight
It
fan
all
fiction
worked
from
in my
something else
book.
to begin with? Or is that 50 Shades of Grey was fan fiction of Twilight that they made?
I love my
I think
Twilight, so
that's what
there's
that
really
was.
nothing. But I 50
I
Shades of
kid.
Grey. How do you I
I
was gonna
kid.
say, like, yeah, how do you put 50 I mean, 50 Shades of Grey was not that great of a movie, but I heard the book was pretty phenomenal. Although Jamie
But
Dornan, huge shout out, he
isn't
did a
that
really
what
good job in
the
that.
isn't that what the person who wrote the books, didn't she write Twilight fan fiction and then she changed the names or she got Twilight fan fiction off of the internet and she changed names to stuff. We have to look that up. I'm almost
Yep.
certain that happened.
I don't know. I'm not sure. No, because I think the whole story with the Twilight thing happens that she had a dream. The author of the books, she like had a dream about this and she woke
Oh,
up and like
bullshit.
wrote this book. And
I
now,
don't
mind
believe that.
you, I
I don't
found
believe that for
out
1 second.
she's Mormon. So they're into the whole fantasy of dreaming about books.
Mm.
So
Um,
Hey, I've had some
well,
pretty great dreams where I wrote down, I'm like, damn, this would be a good book or a
yeah.
movie. And then it sat on my phone in my notes for 10 years.
here okay, so here's what, people asked on Google, "Is 50 Shades of Grey based on Twilight fanfic?" And the answer from October 21st, 2022 is yes. 50 Shades of Grey did start out as a self-insert fan fiction of Twilight.
Oh, I
E.L.
thought you
James
meant the other way around.
No, but here's the funny part, it says, "E.L. James was so horny for Edward from Twilight that they wrote a fan fiction about having lots of kinky sex with him." That's what it says. That
Oh my
that's what's
god.
generated, yes. I don't know
I
if
had
that part
no
is true,
idea.
but I thought the fan fiction thing was true, though.
I had no idea. I did not know
Yeah.
that. I thought you were, like, mentioning the other way around because I was saying Stephanie
Yeah, no, no.
Myers is the one that had the dream about
Okay,
Twilight character,
okay.
the author of Twilight.
Yeah,
She had those dreams.
sure,
Okay, so let's
sure.
rate this movie. Kez, I'm sorry, do you have anything else you wanna say about the movie? I know you liked it.
No, I think that Brian brought some really good points. I honestly thought everybody was going to come in and kind of be like, wow, this time loop shit is crazy, right? But I think that it would have been a better book.
I
Mhm.
agree with that.
They could have expanded on a lot more of these
Yep.
ideas, and I couldn't be driving myself crazy deciding if it was an error in the filming slash plot holes or if everything in the movie is intentional, and that's pissing me off.
Yes,
Mhm.
feel the rage. Come to the dark side, Kaz.
I mean, down to the facial expressions that these guys make at the end, like they're so excited to get out of this loop.
Woo! We
And
did it.
then a couple minutes later, they're talking about how the gas is always, low. And then the brother kind of like, they all of a sudden get like really depressed, right? And then the brother says something like, I'll let you figure it out. So it's almost like, do they know they're in a loop? Or are they like, oh, now we're going back to our boring life? Do you know what I mean? So it's like down to like that kind of dialogue. I'm like, was that intentional? What's going on? Does that mean anything? Yes, that
It had
pisses.
to mean something, but you're right. It
I
could have
thought
been
it
that way.
meant sorry, go ahead.
Mm,
Were you saying something, Rich? I
mm,
interrupted you. I
very
I
good.
just took that as he's been spending his whole life, like, taking care of his brother and babying him, and his brother was always saying, like, "You never let me do XYZ, you never let me make my own decisions," or whatever. So I felt like him leaning back and saying, "You know what? You figure it out," with the gas tank was just his way of, like, kind of handing some control back to the brother over his life and trusting his judgment and allowing him to be big boy.
Yeah.
So, but
He was
who knows?
reinforcing what he said before, that it wasn't just a in the moment, I'm saying this in the moment. It was an actual, I know I said that, I'm gonna lay off a little bit and stop trying to control you so much, that he actually in that moment, it was just reinforcing that. Again,
Yeah.
a good bit of story right there. I wish that there would have been more.
All right,
All
what's
right.
this rating? 1 out of 10, 0 out of 10, or 5, or what?
I think we've been doing 5.
Mhm. Who wants to go first?
I'll give it a
Uh,
2.
A 2? Jenny?
I'm gonna give it a 3. I
Brian?
gotta watch it again.
Oh, yeah. You have to let us know, like, what you think when you watch it again.
4.5.
Brian?
No, I'm just no,
Oh, that
not a
got
four and a
out of
half.
hand really quick.
I'll give it a 2.
I will give it a 3 just because I feel like if I would have paid a little bit more of attention, maybe I could have figured some stuff out. But 3 for there were so many good concepts that just didn't get driven home, so I have to give it that.
I'm gonna give it a 3.94, and the reason for that is I will not watch a movie that's 3 or below. I probably won't watch a movie that's 3.8 or below. If that's the reviews that it's getting, less than a 4, I'm like, hell no, I'm not watching that movie. I'm not wasting my time on it. But 3.94 because I would actually watch it slash recommend it to somebody who likes a thinker movie, then I'm gonna have to go a little higher at 3.94.
Ooh.
Yeah, Kez is Ruthless. They look up Rotten Tomato scores and all that, and they're like, "Nope, not watching it." I'm like,
Well, I
"Come
mean,
on."
right. Well, this goes to show our little panel here, right? That even people who are like-minded in a lot of ways are going to have drastically different opinions about things. And
Yeah.
the thing with movies is it could have a 2 out of 10, right? And everybody in the wide world is saying it's horrible, but there's still going to be, a couple 100,000 people are like, that was the greatest movie I've ever seen. So, but yeah, for the most part, I'm not going to waste my time on a movie that's got a low rating. Why somebody else already did that work for me, right? I don't need to suffer through it. I
Well,
have
I
a
mean,
hard
we can.
time, I have a hard time watching a movie 20 minutes in and then turning it off because I don't like it. I got to finish it now because
Yeah.
no matter how
Yeah,
bad it is, I got to know what the fuck's happening.
Right.
that's true. I mean, there's only been a handful of movies that I think maybe only 2 or 3 that were like, "No, this has gotta be turned off."
Well, if I remember right, when we started the Endless the first time, I think there was a couple times where I was like, "Do you want to just stop? I don't really want to watch this
'Cause it was
anymore."
so
And then,
slow.
well, right, and then something would happen, like when the loops started happening. That's when I was like, "Wait, what the fuck?" So then we finished it because I was like, "What? This was not where I thought this was going."
Right.
It's not
Oh, yeah,
slow, Gina. Alien is slow. The Shining is slow.
that's
This is
true.
boring. Those mean different things.
That's true. That's
Yep.
true, that's true, that's true. It's slow to go, but and like I said, it made us all think.
Oh yeah.
Um, well, so if any of you guys go out and listen to it based on our reviews, or you're just completely freaking confused by everything we just said, and you're like, I just got to go watch this for myself, please let us know either in
Oh
the
yeah.
comments if you've watched it, or if you go to watch it, let us know your thoughts, give us your rating, tell us what you think about the movie. If there's a movie that you want to hear us go over, please let us know. It's typically Larry, Curly, Mo, Brian, Rich, and Rob. They always
Wait, who's who? We
Yeah,
still
I,
don't
who's
know
who?
who's who.
I think we talked about this
I
already
think we did talk about it. Yeah, we did.
a couple
Oh, because
episodes ago. I
yeah,
think
didn't somebody want to be
you
Curly
didn't want
Joe?
to be one, you wanted to be their cousin. What's his name?
No, you're thinking of Shep.
Yeah, Shemp. You wanted to be
Yeah.
Yeah,
Shemp.
There's Curly Joe.
yeah, and then there's Curly Joe.
Curly Joe,
And
yeah.
well, I guess you and Rob could be Curly and Curly Joe,
Oh, all right.
So, but it's usually those 3 that
or
are
Larry.
like
Yeah.
running it because they really, really, really enjoy doing. I mean, not that I don't, but like they really wanted to go with it. So, with that, thanks for listening. But we have a little bit of an announcement for you guys. We're dwindling down to the end of the season. We're gonna try to get a couple more episodes out this month. Um, uh, maybe some movie reviews. We may not do a full topic before the end of the year. We'll try to. Again, family first. We had to take care of some things. But next season will be all about our investigations as we are. How many more days? Does anybody have the countdown? We are leaving on February 27th, 2025 to go to the UK. We are taking the UK by storm. Brian will be back here with Danny manning things on this side whenever we go live. They'll
Of
do
the
the
pond.
moderation. Yep, we're gonna do moderation, so we'll probably do some YouTube live with some comments rolling in, and Brian will take care of those and talk to us so we can investigate. Jenny, do you have a counter? It's Amy that has the
Amy
counter.
has the
Yeah, I was
counter.
gonna say, I know somebody does, but it's not me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's Amy that had the
She's
countdown.
not that excited.
Oh no, I'm not excited. I have got my dog in the kennel and she is crying, and so my brain is in
Oh,
2
well, I
places right
can't hear
now.
her crying if it
I'm
makes you
sorry,
feel
it's a
better.
he. It's
Yeah,
a
Oh,
yeah.
he.
he. Sorry.
Yes,
Well, we cannot hear him crying.
that's good.
But I do want to
I
make.
can. I can hear it
Oh,
very
it's
clearly.
just annoying you.
So it's
But
not
I
that I'm
do
not
want.
excited about the trip. I just have something else.
I do want to announce something new that we will be posting. Um, Brian and a friend of his. Yes,
Mhm.
you. Brian and
Oh,
a friend of his has decided to bring something new to the Realm family, a little extra fun. So, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you for a couple minutes to give everybody a rundown of what they can expect with the new spinoff from the Realm.
well, if you guys like hearing us talk paranormal stuff, I have a feeling a lot of you are professional wrestling fans. And if you are, When you're done watching us, you're gonna go on YouTube and you're gonna go to Wrestling with the Realm podcast, and you're gonna watch me and my co-host Will talk professional wrestling. It's a lot of fun. We're really excited to be doing that. Um, I think there is a big crossover between the paranormal and the professional wrestling world and their fans, and we want to bring those two together and mesh them together very nicely. And we already have at least 2 episodes out right now talking about WrestleMania 41, how we would tell the story. Again, if you're listening to me uh, talk about the story they're trying to tell in this movie. I'm a big story guy, and we talk about that stuff a lot on Wrestling with the Realm. We're really into telling a good story on TV through wrestling, so it's a big part of what we do. So everybody, go check us out. I think you guys will have fun.
Yeah, and I will make sure to put the links. We'll post the episodes on our webpage. I mean, on our Facebook page. And I just want to say, so this is Brian's brainchild. Brian's the brain. Is that right? The brainchild. Is that the right saying?
My
Brainchild
brainchild, the brainchild of Brian.
or
Brian's
manchild. I'm
brainchild.
just kidding.
The
But
Spirit
what I
Box
meant to say is
3000 child.
Brian is the master of ceremonies for this podcast. But you may see some of us on it every once in a while. I told him, look, when we start talking old school
Hmm.
wrestling, Leaping Lanny Poffo, Ric Flair, Jake the Snake Roberts, Undertaker, all of those, I want to be there for that conversation. So you may see some of us hopping on every once in a while. Right now, it's just going to be in YouTube format. I think it's probably best experienced that way. Sometimes when we do these conversations, if some of you might listen to us on regular platforms like Spotify, Amazon Music, or Apple Music, that's great. But I always encourage people, hey, come over to YouTube so that you
Yeah,
can see our smiling faces. Sometimes we share our screens, but sometimes just the interactions between all of us is a lot of fun to experience. Like you're
the
sitting down with some
expressions we
friends.
make
Yes,
are pretty good.
priceless.
You can
Priceless.
really see what we're thinking.
So I thank you so much, Brian, for you and Will to bring some a little extra fun to the Realm name and the Realm family, and I'm excited to post it, and I wish them the most fun and best of luck in getting that up and going. So please go check that out.
I'm
Uh,
excited to have you on and talk some old school
I
wrestling.
cannot wait because I'm telling you some wrestlers. Just a
Yep.
sneak peek.
Oh yeah.
When
See,
I was
Will is
in
new
5th
school.
grade,
Yep.
5th grade, I was in West Virginia and the WrestleMania or I mean WWE, or was it WWF? Didn't it
It was
change like some
WWF
It was
back. Yeah,
WWF
the
back
yeah.
World Wide
then.
So
Web Dominator.
WWF came to the Coliseum in Beckley, West Virginia, and I was in 5th grade, and so our teacher somehow managed to get 4 of the wrestlers to come to.
No.
Yes. And needless to say, there were some
Who was it?
feathers. I will not spoil this. I will
It
not
was Coco
say.
Beware? Birdman Coco Beware
There were
came?
some feathers left by from a boa, is all I'm
Oh,
gonna
okay.
say. And so as they left the room, I'm picking up these turquoise feathers, and I was just because I grew up a
Jesse the
tomboy,
Body
like
Ventura was there?
I no, I wish,
No, you
but
said boas.
but there was some other people that had boas as well. But,
Yeah, many.
what I can say is that, I loved WWF when I was a kid. Like, my dad died when I was 8, so I was always around my brothers and my boy cousins, and so that was our life. Like, I would watch them play wrestling. I was always the announcer, and, I, of course, didn't wanna whip their ass, so I just, and I didn't want to get involved in that. But we had a lot of fun, and like WrestleMania was like our thing, and like the pay-per-view growing up.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. So I'm really excited to watch you guys see what you do. I have not followed wrestling after all these years. My son did for a little bit. We took him to a couple things, but anyway, like I said, I'm really excited for this for you guys and for you bringing it to the Realm family. So thank you so much for those endeavors. And so until next time, we'll talk to you guys later. Kaz, thanks for leading a great
Yeah.
discussion
This
on
was
The
fun.
Endless, a 2017 film. And let me just read that really quickly so we can give the proper the proper, what's it called? Sorry.
Recognition.
Yes, that's it. My brain's this cold is kicking my butt. Anyway, Endless 2017 American science horror fiction film directed and produced by and starring Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. So make sure you check it out. Just
Please
purely
do.
for just to see. We want
Mhm.
to hear what you have to say. Anyway, till next time. Peace out. Bye.
Peace out, big balls.
Yeah.
Every time.